Ilhan Omar's January 27th speech was so much worse than you actually realize. Worse for America, worse for Africa, and if we're really unlucky, worse for the world.
I like how you told me not to watch this speech until now. So I don't know what's coming, all right? But I want to see what she has to say because there's a lot of fun stuff going on in that area of the world right now.
haddii aan dad Soomaali ah waxaan nahay dad isjecel waa laga yaabaa meelaha qaarkood inaan isku xagxagano laakiin haddii runtii ay imaato waxaan nahay dad
I don't understand this woman. The first thing is we as Somalians, right?
Not we the people, huh?
Right, exactly, right? We the Somalians. And then, she's talking about this organized society and who we are and what we are. And where's America? Like, she's talking about a country that's not a real country. It's four clans who hate each other, who are constantly fighting for power. Each one has a different section of Somalia. And they literally, there's over a million dead since 1991? It's crazy, all the craziness that's happened over there in a place that literally can ignite a world war.
I mean, Somalia is a country that literally has a stock exchange for piracy. It's not just that they have a bunch of people going out into the Red Sea or off the Horn of Africa to commit their piracy, like in that Captain Phillips movie. It's much more organized than that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I did research on that, you know what I found out? That people would put like $500 into the stock exchange and then get a return of like $75,000. All right, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, if all you cared about was money, why wouldn't you? I mean, obviously there's more losses than gains, because not all piracy is successful, but the fact of the matter is there's actually a pirate stock exchange. Like I that blows my mind.
And they're not buying a new factory machinery for the pirates. They're buying them like rocket-propelled grenades to threaten ships with if they don't stop and let the pirates on here. I mean, that's what Somalia's economy is based on here.
Right, but that's the point. This is not an organized society. It is run by like clans. It's run by militias. It's run by, I don't know, mafias.
The Al-Shabaab terrorist organization.
Yeah, terrorists. Like, come on. Are we blind? I'm like, do even the people in the audience like respect her after saying something like that?
Well, the audience is majority Somali. I mean, she is, after all, speaking Somali.
Right, I understand that. But what I'm trying to understand is they know she's full of shit. Right off the bat. It is not an organized country. If there was an organized country where everybody was doing happy and grateful and wonderful, they would have stayed there. But instead they emigrated to America.
dad walaalo ah dad dhiig lah dad isku og inay Soomaali yihiin inay Muslim yihiin oo iyagana isku hiiliya.
So I don't understand this. So let me see if I got this right. This is a United States Congresswoman, a citizen of the United States, someone who says, I will defend and uphold the Constitution.
In her oath of office.
Exactly, right? Both foreign and domestic, Okay.
Against all enemies. Okay.
All enemies, foreign and domestic, right? So now, I'm a little confused by this.
And she's going to bear true loyalty to the Constitution.
Wait, hold on. She's saying we're Somalians first. We are Muslim second. And where's America?
She didn't happen to mention anything about America.
See, that's I don't understand that. If you are, I mean, I don't understand why she wouldn't be like, hey, guys, we're Somalian Americans. Like, we're here for this country. We're here to better ourselves. We're here, like, talking about Somalians. Like, I don't even understand. You're talking about a section of the world that literally is, a time bomb ticking for the next world war. And how much craziness is over there. And she's talking about how it's like a peaceful, organized society. You know what?
George Santos was kicked out of Congress for a whole lot less than this, I'll tell you. And if the Democrats want to convince the rest of the country that all of their views are not just about getting more power, then maybe they should say something about what Ilhan Omar says.
there's a difference between Ilhan Omar and George Santos. Santos straight up lied. Like he's just like, yeah, no, I'm a liar. Omar hasn't lied. She's just saying things that are, and she's doing things that are anti-American, and I don't mean it as just words. I mean it's like her actions are showing that it's anti-American. That's not where her loyalties lie, and we're letting that go, and no one wants to say anything about it.
They don't want to say anything about it because of the woke mind virus that's infected so much of the left in this country. The woke mind virus will tell you that in any conflict between someone who's white and someone who's black, the black person wins because they win the Oppression Olympics. It doesn't matter what the particulars of the situation are. We know who the winner should be just by looking at their race. And between a man and a woman, the woman should win because we know who's more oppressed, who wins the Oppression Olympics, and someone who is who identifies as the opposite gender and someone who identifies as the correct gender. We know who's going to win. Why? Because the person who calls himself trans is more oppressed. And if you pile these things on top of each other, someone who's black, Muslim, trans, wins the gold medal in this Oppression Olympics and will win any conflict against anybody. Why? Because we judge people on their outward characteristics and not on the content of their character. And it prevents people from looking at someone like Ilhan Omar, seeing the content of the character, seeing how she could definitely be perceived as disloyal, and saying, it doesn't matter. Her demographics are the most important thing about her.
On top of that, she's a pretty lady, right? And I bring that up for one point very specific. They asked the Dalai Lama recently if, could there ever be a female Dalai Lama? And they said yes, but she's going to have to be attractive. So this BBC reporter says, what's the deal? He says, look at the world today. If you're not attractive, people don't want to listen to you. And I thought about that statement, and I realized how true it really is. If you look at the people who have power, there's a level of attractiveness to all of them today. FDR would not get elected today because he was in a wheelchair, not because of anything else. If you had a guy who was ugly as sin, as some of our presidents have, there has to be some level of attraction there. And when you look at it, and you look at Ilhan Omar, so many people, I believe, and this is my personal opinion, so many people just look at her and be like, that's such a pretty lady. They don't care what comes out of her mouth.
One reason why immigrants are so important in a national discussion is because of two interests. First of all, politicians are very eager to get votes that are very cheap to buy. So by importing immigrants, this has been done, by the way, worldwide. It's not just in America. It's not just in Western countries. I mean, this has been done literally since ancient times. And politicians realize that they can get more power more easily by catering to the needs of immigrants, of people who are new to the country and therefore displaced and therefore in a disadvantaged position. By catering to their needs, they can do it much more cheaply. And it's a way to get power. They use a lot of their persuasive tactics to make the country believe that the more immigrants we have, the better. That's not quite the truth. We do need immigrants, absolutely. I mean, my grandparents were immigrants, my father-in-law is immigrants, most of the people in my synagogue are immigrants. We need immigrants in this country, but what we need is to have an immigration policy that serves we the people, not an immigration policy that serves the politicians. And the problem is that the people making the policy are the politicians. And the politicians are going to make those policies that serve their own needs and then use their control of the media, use their control of Hollywood, use their control of the universities to convince the rest of the people that it was a good idea the whole time. And that's just not true.
So who else out there has interest in this? That's what I want to know.
So you mean to follow the money?
Follow the money.
Okay, there are other organizations in the United States that have a very big interest in importing as many immigrants as possible. These immigrants, And these agencies are called VOLAGs, voluntary agencies. These are groups that are usually church affiliated, and they are funded mostly by the taxpayer dollars. And their job is to settle refugees in this country. And the more refugees coming into the country, the more claim they have on taxpayer dollars. And if you have a look at their funding, if you have a look at how much the CEOs of these corporations are making, I mean, they're nonprofit organizations, but look, Church World Services, the CEO makes what, $345,366. You know, there was a bishop in Germany in the Middle Ages, the 1500s or something like that. And he famously said, the poor are a gold mine. And wow, for John L. McCullough, the president and CEO of Church World Services, the poor really are a gold mine. When they bring immigrants in the country, all these people need services. And these organizations decide who gets paid for administering those services. And what happens is they, if they're like a lot of these typical charities, a lot of these, like the homeless industrial complex has the exact same problems, where you're building infrastructure, you're building you're building like a service network, and the people who benefit the most are the cronies of the higher ups in these organizations. That's exactly what I would suspect is happening. I don't have specific evidence of what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. But if you look at the pay of the CEOs here, I mean, look at Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Mark Hetfield is making $343,630. Oh, and look, International Rescue Committee. Wow, poor really are a gold mine for their CEO, because he's making almost $750,000.
Right, but look how much money between the contributions and grants. That's $750 million.
We have one impoverished CEO here. He's only making $132,740. I mean, for these guys, the poor, the wretched refuse yearning to breathe free.
Well, that's a tongue twister.
Are a gold mine, and it's incentivizing these organizations to use what political pull they have, and they have a decent amount of political pull, to increase the number of immigrants coming into the country, regardless of what the interests of we the people are. And if it's going to result in having people elected to Congress who are more loyal to their country of origin and have no fear of saying it in public, then that's going to cause a big problem.
dhexdaas markii aan maqalnay in qaar Soomaali ah ama Soomaali sheegato in Ethiopia ay la galeen ma baqaan af Soomaali wixii lagu dhaho agreement heshiis Maxamuud Nuur hadda aniga Soomaaliga badiyo ceeb ma aha dad badan ay soo wacay oo waxay leeyihiin Ilhan dawladda Mareykanka inaan la hadashid waaye dawladda Mareykanka.
Now we're getting to the part where we're going to show how it's bad for Africa and the people of Africa as well.
Now, the situation in the Horn of Africa is literally a landmine. Everywhere you step, you have a danger of getting screwed over, getting killed, all sorts of things. Somalia is a country that's built on 4 clans that all hate each other. Somaliland, pulled away from Somalia because it was ridiculous what was going on over there. Now they have a stable government, infrastructure, all the fun stuff with their own country. You've got Eritrea, which is been war-torn since it's separated from Ethiopia. You've got Ethiopia, which is the largest landlocked country in the world, where in terms of population, where people just are dying by crazy numbers. So you've got this whole situation over here. Why the hell are we in it? Someone needs to explain that to me, because I'm looking at this right now. You were talking to me once about how American intervention has just not been successful for a long time. So why are we even in it?
Okay, a little background here. One of the things she's talking about here is a country called Somaliland. Of course, she'll tell you that Somaliland is not a real country. Why is it not a real country? It's not because it doesn't have a government. It actually has a government that's working. It's a democratic government that's more equitable and fair than any other country in the Horn of Africa. So it's got a real government. It's got a real currency. It's got police and services. It's a very, very poor country, and it's not doing those things as well as, say, France or Luxembourg or something like that. But it's
Luxembourg.
Yeah, Luxembourg. Yeah. It's not doing those things as well as some advanced European country, but it is doing those things better than any other place in the Horn of Africa. And if you asked me where I wanted to live and I was given the choice between Somalia and Somaliland, I'd take Somaliland in a heartbeat. But as I said, it's not a real country because other countries, the UN, etc., don't recognize it, which is a real pity because it looks to me as if Somaliland, given the fact that it is the least corrupt of the countries in that region, given the fact that it's the most stable of the countries in those regions, could become like the Taiwan or the Singapore of Africa. It's got this potential because of its lack of corruption. And Somalia is insisting, Italy too, is insisting that nobody else recognize Somaliland. And what Ilhan Omar is saying here is that the United States should stop the memorandum of understanding that's going on between Ethiopia and Somaliland. What's that about? Ethiopia is the largest by population landlocked country in the world. It's got, I think it's 120 million people or so.
Something like that.
And it has no access to the sea. And it has not had any access to the sea since 1993, when Eritrea broke off and formed its own country and became a complete basket case, by the way. And now it has no access to the sea. What Somaliland has that Ethiopia needs is that access to the sea. Right now, Ethiopia is getting its access to the sea in Djibouti. But the only way to get there is by a very vulnerable railroad, and it needs more. It needs something better. So it's making a trade, a mutually beneficial trade with Somaliland. And what she wants is for that not to happen.
I can see why she wouldn't want that to happen. In that small little country of Djibouti, you have both a Chinese military base
Djibouti.
and Djibouti. Mm-hmm. All right, you want to talk about Djibouti? Let's talk about Djibouti all you want. So there's an American base. Like there's the Russians are trying to build one. The Saudis are trying to build one. Like India, it's like all these countries that want to be there. The Germans. Why? What is so important about Djibouti? But here's the thing, though. That's what Omar doesn't want, because what's going to happen if like this memorandum of understanding goes through and all this happens? She's nervous of another Djibouti.
Right. But one of the things she said, remember, she began the speech, "We Somalians," and there is an ideology in Somalia about having a greater Somalia, which basically means that all the Somali speakers should be united under one government. It's almost like someone said, I don't know, all German speakers should be united under one government. I mean, has that ever been tried? Has it been successful, or did it lead to chaos if it had been tried? Or
I'm going to go a little chaotic there.
Okay, so the idea that all speakers of the Somali language should be under one government, and that should be the worst government in the region, it doesn't seem like something that will do good things for the Somali people, especially since when Somalia was united, the Soviet Union put their man into Somalia. His name was Mohammed Saeed Barre, and when the Soviets put their people in charge of a country, the inevitable result is starvation and genocide. And when they did that to Somalia, the Somalians got the deluxe package.
They paid extra for that, huh?
Yes, they did. He was, I forget which tribe he was, but he was in the Somalia end of it. And he bombed the capital of Somaliland so damn thoroughly that they call it the Isaaq genocide. Several 100,000 people died. So you could see why the people of Somaliland and the Isaaq tribe does not want to be under the control of Somalia, because they were treated extremely badly by the other three tribes and the other areas of Somalia. And Ilhan Omar, from what she's saying, and this ideology of a greater Somalia, wants to make this region a worse place by forcing people, just because they're Somali speakers, into a chaotic and awful government from a pretty good government that has mistreated them so badly in the past.
So now that leads me to a basic question. If she's so pro-Somalia, she's so pro this, my Somaliland, my Somalia, my Somalia, my Somalia, why the hell is she here in the States?
What a good question. My guess, economic immigration. She stands to live a better life and make more money and get more influence being here. It's gaming the system. I mean, remember, she is famous for the allegations that she gamed the immigration system by marrying her brother. People game the system all the time to get the results they want, and this seems like the answer to your question.
I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense. Somalia is so good. Stay there.
maxay ka qabanaysaa jawaabteedu waxay ahayd dawladda Mareykanka waxay ka qabanaysaa wixii annaga aan dhahno dawladda Mareykanka qabo waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno annaga Soomaali hadii aan nahay wadankan annaga ku nool wadankan wadankii aan annaga tax ka dhiibno waaye waa wadankii gabar idinka dhalatayne ee Congress-ka fadhiso intii aniga aan Congress joogo wadanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan wadanka Mareykankana kuma taageerayo dad kaleeta in annaga ayna dhacaan marka taas ka seexda reer Minnesota gabadhii Congress-a u dirsateen way idinka war haysaa sidaad idinka u dareemaysiin dantaas ay u dareemeen madaxweyne Xasan Sheekhna waxaan leeyahay waan kugu faraxsanahay shaqada fiican aad qabatay in dadka Soomaaliya iyo dadka meel kasta ku nool aad dareensiisay si kasta anaga aan u dhibanahay Soomaali hadii aan nahay waxaan nahay dad karti leh dad wadankooda aqoonsan dad wadankoodii aan wiligood danger laga gelin karin marka waxaan reer Minnesota iyo Soomaalida meel kasta ku nool adeerkaya hadda mar dhow ka hadlaayay idinkaga hambalyeynaya sida aad iskugu wada duuban tihiin sida aad kulligiin u garab istaagteen madaxweynaheena because wuu u baahan yahay in kulligeen aan garab istaagno Soomaaliya waa Soomaali Soomaaliya waa hal walaalaan wada nahay dhulkeena lagama kala qaybsanaayo dhulal baa naga maqan aan raadsanaynaa insha Allah marna maalinta laakiin inta aan haysan hadda lama kala qaybinaayo marka waa mahadsantihiin dhamaantiin sidaad ii sharaftiin oo markasta aad iigu soo dhawaysiin ilaahay idin sharfo assalaamu alaykum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So let me see if I got this right. She's saying that we're Somalians. She's not saying we're Americans. She's saying that I'm within the American system. I'm a congressman and I'm your voice. I am here to protect our interest within the American. She's saying right then and there that she's not an American. She's saying I'm Somalian and I am working within the system to protect our interests. Like, great. America is for Americans, right? We're not for Somalia. America will do what's in best interest of America, not what's in the best interest of Somalians, just as Somalians will do what's in their best interest, not what's in America's best interest. And she's saying, though, that she's now found that little hole. She's found that gap in the system where I can now get into the system, pretend I'm whatever. But in reality, this is who and what I am. I am an agent for Somalia. I am not an American. And I don't know why people aren't calling her out on that. All I know is that so far the only thing I've seen is DeSantis wants to send her back. It's like, what, deport her. What? Are you kidding me after the speech? Like, do you not realize how bad this is?
Well, she's asking the USA to play with fire for pan-Somalian or whatever interests. I mean, she's saying we don't want others in control of our water. That water would be off the coast of Somaliland, not off the coast of Somalia. She would have a reasonable point if she was saying, listen, in Africa, countries other than Somalia have broken apart, right? South Sudan broke off from Sudan, and it was a human rights disaster, the like of which it's rare to see. She's not really saying that, oh, well, it might be a horrible, terrible thing if Somaliland breaks away from Somalia. No, she's saying this is our land and we're going to keep it, damn it. And in so doing, she is saying that she's going to ask the United States to meddle in one of the most explosive parts in the world. And that's a terrifying thought, to know that we have people in the American government who want the United States to get involved in things like this.
Well, I mean, listen, let's look at the American history when it comes to intervening in other places. How well did that work out for us?
Usually poorly.
I mean, we forget
there's slave markets in Libya now, right?
So we need to stay the hell out of it. That's one. Two, when you're looking at that, it's just a landmine for another war, right, that we don't want to be in.
Well, are we going to stay out of it? The question of whether we're going to stay out of it or not has nothing to do with America's interest. What it has to do is the interest of the politicians who are making the decisions. And if we have so many people who are convinced by the likes of Ilhan Omar and the likes of her constituents that we get involved, just despite the fact that it would make Africa a worse place by crushing the one most democratic place in the Horn of Africa and handing it over to a pirate-ridden terror trap.
Let's look at the whole region. You've got Ethiopia fighting with everybody. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Eritrea, Somalia, so on and so forth. You've got Somalia fighting, different points with, Djibouti and, Somaliland, again, back to Ethiopia. You've got Egypt involved. Like, all these places, they're all fighting over the same thing. They're fighting over access to water. They're fighting over access to the sea. They're fighting for all these different things. Egypt already has a hydroelectric plant. It'll get destroyed if Ethiopia builds theirs. What's going to be? It's also going to kill their agriculture. It's going to basically kill the country in a lot of ways. Ethiopia, on the other hand, says, well, we're already dead. The only way we can come back to life is if we build this. So they both got valid points. Now, but they're all fighting over this thing. But in the backdrop of all this is where it gets even more dangerous. As you said in the beginning, you asked the questions, why did what she say was bad for us and bad for the region and bad for the world? Let's start talking about why it's bad for the world. It's bad for the world because what goes up the Red Sea is at the top of the Red Sea is something called the Suez Canal. So, why is that so important? More than half of all the world's oil reserves are in the Arabian Peninsula. How does it get to Europe? How does it get to the Americas? Oh, that's right, it goes up through the Suez Canal. All the stuff that China makes, they send it to Europe. Through how? Oh, that's right, through the Suez Canal. So now, as we start talking about all these lanes that things go in and out of, where's Djibouti in this whole thing?
Well, it's right there near the Bab al-Mandeb Strait.
Right. So here's the crazy thing. There's a bunch of military bases out there. Everybody from China, Germany, the United States, we're all in there to protect our interests within this little area, through this little strait that's about 20 miles wide. Because we know that it can get totally screwed up. A few years ago, the Suez Canal got clogged up. Just boats were lined up for miles. What happened? And for 8 days, they couldn't do anything. It was like almost $9 billion was lost because of that 8 day holdup, because of the boat got stuck, right? Could you imagine if there was a war over there? Europe's oil is done. America's done. when it comes to oil. It will be the biggest world war that'll come out of this whole thing. And quite frankly, in that little city, in that little state of Djibouti, it's like some of our, allies are there, some of our enemies are there. So now what you've got going on here is you've got this whole situation that will blow up the entire world essentially and will change everything. And she's talking about letting that happen. She's really talking about igniting that power keg. And we don't even seem to realize it yet.
The scariest thing about what she's saying is that she's saying the United States should intervene on behalf of Somalia no matter what. And what the American people should be saying is the United States should do whatever it takes to keep as much peace as we can have for the short term and the long term. And the only way to do that is by assessing the situation. And we can't assess the situation by saying Greater Somalia, therefore Somaliland. We can't do that. What we have to do is we have to look at the players on the table, and we need to figure out how to get them to agree. Figure out how to get the Isak people of Somaliland their rights, their good government, their trade to develop their country. I really think the world would be a better place. Africa would be a better place if Somaliland was recognized as its own country and given a seat in the UN and all of that.
But that's not going to happen. Italy doesn't want that to happen. The European Union won't let it happen either because Italy is a part of the European Union, so we got to back up our boys. It's like it's becoming a street fight because nobody wants to be the guy to start messing with all that. And it's crazy because if they were recognized, it would make them, as you said a bunch of times already to me, it would make them the Singapore of Africa. And I don't know why they won't.
Also, you know who else has an interest in keeping this situation as awful as possible? There are a lot of these non-governmental organizations that get their funding, they get their reason for existence by handing out charity to the unfortunate peoples of the world. And in so doing, they usually make things a lot worse. Remember I said the poor are a gold mine?
Hell yeah.
Well, the poor are a gold mine to these NGOs that distribute their largesse to the poor of Africa. And in so many ways, they prevent the development of, and they prevent the energetic and smart people on that continent from developing that continent into a place that is free and prosperous.
We really see this powder keg. We see this spot. I'm like, God damn it, man. The Horn of Africa, it very well potentially could be the start of World War III. And it would be a matter of our own doing because we meddled in things that we shouldn't have meddled in years ago.